All right, 13 past 7 o'clock on this Thursday morning on WPHM. About a week and a half away now from the primary election in Michigan. Dan Lauer's is term limited, and so as soon as everybody realized, oh my gosh, that seat is going to be open, people started clamoring for it. Ken Nicholl is the superintendent of Yale Public Schools and was one of the first to announce his candidacy for this seat. Ken, good morning.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
I appreciate you joining us this morning. So what made you decide you wanted to join this race? You don't often hear of a superintendent of a school district going into politics.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel that you can be part of the problem or part of the solution. And I feel that in my line of work, I have the opportunity to work with kids, be an advocate for kids locally. And this is perhaps an opportunity to do it on a grander stage.
There you go. So I'm going to go on a limb and assume that education is one of the important issues to you. Is that right?
Absolutely. Education and being supportive of our kids and our teachers absolutely is one of my top priorities.
What's the state legislature doing right, and what are they not doing right that you'd like to see fixed?
As it relates to education,
Yeah.
just in general.
Well, let's start with education and then talk generally.
You bet. I think a couple of things. Most recently this year, I think they're starting to fund it, and they're starting to fund it properly. I'm hopeful that it's not just because it's an election year, and I'm hoping that's a trend that we continue to see. So we can't give our teachers the tools to do their job if we don't fund them properly.
What about the per pupil aspect of funding? Is there a better way to fund schools than per pupil?
You know, that's a great question. I would love to look deeper into it. Currently, I know that it's difficult for us as administrators to try to plan and budget for the following year, because the way that they do it is you get the money allocation, but you don't know the number of students you have. And so you're really kind of throwing a dart in many regards to how much money you have for the following year.
Yeah, we talked with the Port Huron superintendent the other day, and he said, enrollment is going down, not just in the Port Huron district, but all districts are seeing, the birth rate is lower in Michigan. We have fewer kids than we used to, so that per pupil method of funding doesn't necessarily work in all cases.
Right.
Yeah. What about in general? What would you like to take to Lansing with you? What would you like to see changed?
Well, without a doubt, I've been going door to door, and I've probably hit about 6,000 or 7,000 doors, and I'm listening to the constituents that I'm hopeful to represent. And certainly infrastructure is there, education, as we talked about. We want to make certain that there's still economic growth, and more importantly, we're trying to put monies back into the pockets of our Michigan residents and families.
Yeah. So how do you want to do that? How do you want to see the economy move forward in Michigan?
Well, just one simple idea is we're looking at auto insurance as being a typical complaint, if you will, by many of the Michigan residents. And I think if you at least could lower rates, that puts more expendable funds in people's pockets. What's going to happen? They're going to spend that money, and that's going to spur economic growth as well. And I know that there needs to be reform in auto insurance. And there's a couple things specifically that I have in mind that I'd like to do.
Well, like what?
Well, so for instance, right here in Port Huron, you can go to the Secretary of State's office to get your tabs for your vehicle. Unfortunately, right next door, you can also purchase a policy for $79, and it's a 10-day policy. I think the industry needs to take a look at that themselves. Because there's no reason they should be selling a 10-day policy, because we all know what's going to happen. In 10 days, I'm going to get my tabs in the mail, and I'm going to cancel my auto insurance, and therefore I'm uninsured. But yet I got a tab on my vehicle, and we're all paying that burden. And so if we could eliminate that practice, and I think the industry itself needs to self-regulate, they need to eliminate that. It would considerably lower rates, because it would lessen the number of uninsured vehicles out there.
Talking with Ken Nicholl. He is the superintendent of the Yale Public Schools, also candidate for 81st State House District, running as a Republican, one of many in the field. This is a hotly contested seat, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very crowded field, without a doubt. And I do applaud all the members that are stepping up and trying to be a public servant for our area.
Were the people around you surprised when you announced that you were going to run for this seat?
Yeah, I think they were. I not because they didn't think I could do it. I think they felt that I do a pretty good job in Yale, representing our community and all the townships that represent and comprise Yale Public Schools. But I think didn't think that this was something that was going to be in my wheelhouse.
It should be a new job, and really one where you'd probably have to step away from the current job that you have
Oh,
if
absolutely.
you win this race, right?
Yeah, that was a common question that was asked, and there's no way that you could do both of these. The good news, Paul, is I love what I do, and so I'm in a win-win situation. I'm very hopeful to get the blessing of the voters, but at the same token, I love what I do on a day-to-day basis.
If you're in the State House of Representatives, who would you like to see in the governor's office?
Currently, the race is being very contested between Callie and Schuette. Right now, I'm in Schuette's corner.
Why?
I think a couple things. Primarily, I think he's been a victim's right advocate, and I think he's done that in a lot of different ways. He's developed committees for sex trafficking, things like that, and I think he's recognizing these are real problems. Additionally, I think he was a voice for the Flint crisis as well. He certainly was holding people accountable for some of the things that occurred, and I think he walks where he talks.
As you've been going door to door in the 81st district, what are you hearing from voters? What are some of their concerns?
Not surprisingly, hot topics are fix the roads, lower my auto insurance, and again, try to give me some more expendable monies. And so looking at, issues of taxes, rolling back to the Granholm, days of the promissory note that was given at that time to keep the taxes back where they were. And then additionally, I think it's important that people in general want common sense returned to our government.
There's a lot of names on the ballot a week from Tuesday. Why should voters in the 81st District vote for Ken Nicholl for State House of Representatives?
Well, I think even though I haven't been an elected public official, I've been in the public eye for over 3 decades as in education. As you mentioned, I'm the superintendent currently of Yale Public Schools. I run an $18 million budget. We do it very fiscally responsibly, and I've demonstrated trust and integrity over these years. I'm the longest seated superintendent in the county. This is my 9th year, my 20th year in Yale Public Schools. I think I've demonstrated people can trust and expect that I'm going to do the right thing. I often say, what you see is what you get.
Looking forward to the Bologna Fest this weekend.
Oh, you can't mention Yale without the bologna capital of the world.
That's right, big weekend.
Absolutely, it's going to be a great weekend. Weather's going to be very cooperative, and this is one of those small town affairs that is done in such a big way.
It is.
We're very excited about our bologna.
Yeah, absolutely. Ken, nice meeting you. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Ken Nicholl with us on WPHM, candidate for 81st District State House. It is 21 past 7 o'clock now.